On the stage is pro-life. I'm going to presume, I'll show if hands works well, it's a good visual. All right, here's a little trick here. Is it everyone's intent in the United States Senate to vote for justices who will overturn Roe versus Wade? Everybody? All right. Is it everyone's wish? Does everyone believe that there should be a special legal recognition for marriage between one man and one woman? We'll talk about what the same-sex couples ought to do, but man-woman marriage is unique and deserves unique legal recognition. Right? Unanimity there. All right. There. Here's a time saver. Then here's where we're going to go. On both abortion, if Roe versus Wade is overturned, abortion does not become illegal. Every state gets to have its own abortion laws. Is that okay with you? And in gay marriage, that seems to be something over which there's an interesting discussion. Should we leave that to every state? So let every state define marriage as it wishes, or do we need a uniform national rule making that one man, one woman? Leland, I'll give this to you, we're going to do this and send it down there. Actually, there, and send it that one. Thanks.
I do believe in overturning Roe versus Wade, and I do believe turning it over to the states. Because quite frankly, I don't want East Coast Republican women telling me as a conservative Texas Republican woman what abortion looks like. I'm sorry, we've got 5 women that are Republican in the U.S. Senate. Only 1 is considered undoubtedly pro-life. The states are consistently more conservative in how they ban abortion than the federal government ever is. So I do believe in pushing it to the states, and then each one of us needs to make sure we petition our legislators and we vote for legislators who believe life begins at conception and it ends at natural death when that person decides. I do believe in state-by-state for marriage, but what we're going to get, they're definitely going to push us on interstate commerce. Well, if someone they've already done it before. They got married in Virginia, they wanted to get divorced in Texas, and Greg Abbott, the amazing attorney general he is, pushed to make sure that we didn't have to recognize it. If California, the land of fruits and nuts, wants to have gay marriage, God bless them. But when they move to Texas, because we've got a better economy, they can leave their values out the door. We are conservative. We voted for one marriage between one man and one woman. But I don't believe in letting the federal government decide it. Again, because once these guys get in power, and their turn will come again eventually, they will turn it all over again. Let's leave it to the states where the real voices are.
The first bill that I will introduce as a senator is to make abortion illegal. Period. I will put it into play. I do not believe that it's a state's issue. I don't believe it's a federal government issue. It is illegal, period. We should not do it. We will not do it. I am shocked at the number of unborn children we have in this nation. We have wiped out 54 million unborn babies. That is the size of Texas, Florida, and Ohio together. Who have we wiped out? This is not pleasing to God. And we must make it illegal. And that will be the first bill that I will put into place. And in regards to marriage, I will propose an amendment that the state or the federal government do not have a right to determine what marriage is. God already determined it. And we do not have that choice to determine that. The state or the federal government. The law should say that the state should not have the right to determine that it was already determined by God. That marriage was determined already by God. We should not make that choice. Man does not have the option to make that choice or that determination.
To me, in the end, both of these issues are faith issues. My faith is very clear. One, you do everything you can to defend the life that begins at conception. And you use every single tool that you have available to make sure that that comes about. I'm happy to fight it at the state level, but I assure you, all of us should fight it on a continual basis. It is absolutely critical. Similarly, marriage should be defined as one man and one woman. I would support the constitutional amendment in that regard, but I can tell you that as the bully pulpit in the Senate, even on a statewide basis, I would work very hard on both of these issues because they go at the core of what we are as a nation.
Whenever we have the federal government trying to socialize or regulate social behavior, you're always going to have issues. And that's why the federal government should not be involved in this issue. It should not be legislating abortion, or it should not be legislating gay marriage. That's up to the states to decide. Now, the issue specifically in reference to marriage is I would support that a man and woman is an actual marriage versus any other gay marriage. I do that theologically, and I can also prove it scientifically. Scientifically, a man and a woman continue the human race. A man and a man cannot make children, nor a woman. So there's no reason why they should have any special privileges in reference to that. As far as goes with abortion, it's got to be at the state level. And I would support having a law that supports abortion. And it's just a personal thing of mine, to be honest with you. Of a personal tragedy. Although it was an abortion, we did lose a 6-month child. And the laws said that child did not have any rights. And that pissed me the heck off. So if we really want to get down to the meat of the fact, the matter is, do not let yourself, even as a Republican Party, let the Democrats push you on this issue and say, you need to socialize and regulate this. No, when they start regulating social behavior, that's when they're setting you up with a T on it. Thank you.
Ms. Jones.
In 2003, there was a terrible tragedy in California when a man murdered his wife, Lacey Peterson, and her unborn baby. And so, the Texas legislature, in memory of Lacey Peterson, we passed the Prenatal Protection Act, and it defined life at the moment of conception and created a criminal penalty for the taking of it. And for that, I was a co-sponsor. I'm proud to be part of that legislative body that passed that wonderful piece of legislation. I've worked hard for 10 years to create the Texas Cord Blood Bank, where people after the healthy delivery of their newborn baby can donate the umbilical cord to the Texas Cord Blood Bank so that the stem cells from cord blood can save lives. And stem cells from cord blood, after the delivery of your full-term healthy baby, do save life. We don't need anything else. There's no such thing as a life-saving stem cell from an embryonic cord blood. There's no such thing as that. And I will work to create that kind of policy as the United States Senate. I want to say that as far as marriage, it's a sacrament. And wonderful weddings have taken place in this sanctuary, and we just had one in December. It is a sacrament, a holy sacrament, and yet the state government sometimes gives preference to marriages. And that is why we must, as we have in Texas, we have an amendment that defines marriage as that union between a man and a woman, and that's it. And so, yes, it should be at the state level, I believe, but there will be no, of course, here in Texas, no recognition of any marriage between any people unless they are a man and a woman.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Come on down here, Mr. Cruz.
You know, it's a funny thing. Everyone who supports legalized abortion has already been born. We found out just this past week, with the passing of Steve Jobs, the incredible fact that he was adopted at birth. If his parents had exercised abortion, this iPad wouldn't be here today, and we wouldn't have this stack. You know, just about every candidate in a Republican primary will raise their hand and say, I'm pro-life. Just about every candidate in a Republican primary will raise their hand and say they support traditional marriage. And I support a strong human life amendment and a strong marriage amendment. But the question each of us as voters should be asking is, what is your record? If you believe in life and marriage, when have you been in the trenches standing up and fighting for life and marriage? When I was the Solicitor General of Texas, we defended the Federal Partial Birth Abortion Act before the U.S. Supreme Court, and we won 5-4. We defended parental notification before the Supreme Court, and we won unanimously. We defended the legislature's bill prohibiting taxpayer money going from organizations that fund abortions, and we won unanimously. And when a state district court granted a divorce to two men that had gotten a civil union in Vermont, as Leila mentioned, when I was serving under Attorney General Greg Abbott, we intervened in the proceeding and the district court vacated the order. That's a proven record of standing and fighting for principles, and at a time when we need fighters in Washington, we need to ask every candidate, show me your record, show me you've walked the walk, and not simply raised your hand.
Mr. Adams.
I suspect in this crowd there's a lot of people like myself that have stood up for the right to life at protesting abortion clinics, marching, holding up signs as people drive by. So I would take exception to not having done something to stand for life. I suspect many of you have done that. We are not all lawyers to stand before judges. One thing that disturbs me is that Republicans and Democrats alike, especially Republicans that claim to be pro-life, have not taken advantage in the Constitution of Article 3, Section 2. If you look at the last sentence of the next to the last paragraph, it talks about jurisdiction in the Supreme Court and what type of cases can be heard at the appellate level. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions, and under such regulations as the Congress shall make, which is why I support House Bill 1096, the Sanctity of Life Act, which with a majority vote in the Congress and the President signing off on it will overturn Roe v. Wade and send it back to the states so that every state can decide, are we going to have abortion or are we not? And that has been an area that the Congress and the Republican Party has not spoken to, and I will carry that bill to the Senate and make sure that we can take that away from the Supreme Court, because I don't want to wait until we have it overturned. That may not even be in my lifetime. We need to take advantage of the Constitution, overturn it by voting to take that jurisdiction away from the Supreme Court and give it back to the states. With regard to marriage, I think that the federal government must speak that marriage is between one man and one woman, and then the states implement the legislation accordingly.
All right. Well, we're getting closing statement time, and there's one last thing I want to do, just because I think it'll be a good time. I want to give the panel, move from Ms. Jones, move down to the right. I want to give the panel an opportunity to do one of two things. Either A, identify a presidential candidate you favor, or B, say, nah, I'm good, I'll support the eventual nominee.